Seeing if there are any comments from the public. Any comments from anyone? I don't see anyone out there raising their hand. Item 3, receive the president and director's comments. Okay, I just have one that I want to make, and there's 2 things on the agenda that we really do need to think about. One is the vote on the strategic plan and what we tell Neil to do. And I'm going to ask each of you if you have any specific comments on it before we vote. And the other one is on the establishment of a newsletter, much like Mud 47 has done. And Neil, I'd like you to give us, when we do that, a rundown of what the Education Committee is doing.
Okay.
Those are my notes. Nobody else? Okay.
Yeah, hang on. May I?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Shelley copied a letter that was handed out at the trustee meeting from Lone Star concerning discussions that are ongoing. The title of the letter is Ray Partnership with University of Houston Harris Galveston Subsidence District. I want to reiterate at this meeting yet again, there is no partnership. Okay, make it very clear. There's a very broad discussion on what technologies are available so that we can look at subsidence more holistically and in an integrated fashion. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand the context of the letter.
Okay, thank you, Neil. One other thing that reminds me of, I did talk with John Yours today. There was no action at the Lone Star groundwater meeting last night on anything to do with concerning a replacement for him. He has filed his CV as he was asked for. He has not heard anything else from them. So it is all just sitting there in limbo. And he's decided that he's just going to let it sit and see what happens. Okay. Mike, any item number 4, any requests for adjustments? Jeannie? Okay, thank you. Item number 5, the consent agenda. We've got 5 items on it. Anybody have anything to say about any of them?
Brian does.
Just to remove one item, we are still waiting on the wage rate scales for 23 from the Department of Labor, so we're going to defer on item 8, so you can pull that from the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. I had one question for Mike. Mike, on the sanitary sewer expenses, we didn't have very much and we had budgeted quite a bit. Is that because of weather or something? Or
No, we just haven't had projects run through the city for signature. It's held up at the county. They're wanting a separate traffic control plan for each work site. Never heard of before, so consultant Garver or consultants having trouble either complying with that or making them see what one traffic control plan is just a generic. The contractor would be responsible for the traffic control plan at each site. But
okay, it has not affected the cost of the project.
yeah, so we're kind of behind, a little bit behind schedule. I think those projects done.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, is this something new or has this always been the case of having?
This was 2 years ago, we did the sewer smoke testing and TVing. This is the project that was generated out of that.
Okay, okay.
There's some in your district, there's some in Mud 46, there's some in Metro. It's all combined into one project, but you've got probably the lion's share of the repairs.
How long does it take the city of Houston to sign these
Montgomery
things?
County, yeah, having gone to the city, you can't get it out of the county.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So there's some hoops to,
There's some hoops.
okay.
That's within precinct 3 or more than one precinct?
Yeah, it's in precinct 3, all in precinct.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved with the exception of item 8 as noted.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay, moving to the irregular agenda, received the San Jacinto River Authority's report, including the update on the wastewater strategic plan and the infrastructure funding. Dan, you going to be first?
I think we're gonna have a couple people today. If you got any questions on the operation reports, I think Jason and Chris can answer those. And so if you got any of those first. we can
Yeah.
go over that.
We okay with that? Chris, for the benefit of the directors, could you just go through what you explained to the trustees on the water loss numbers that were updated? Just very briefly.
Yeah, you can rotate that one so I can.
He's got a good,
Page 33 in your packet.
he's got an explanation in the packet.
Yeah, but I think there was more subtleties.
There's a little bit more to it.
Yeah.
We try to recap it briefly
Yeah,
here, but what it is basically, when you look at the table on the far left, you're gonna see MOR. That's what's been reported monthly on the monthly operations report. To the right is, to the left, is the adjusted numbers, okay? These adjustments were found after about a week and a half. We do a water audit each year, but after about a week and a half of verifying the numbers, these are the correct numbers. So what you'll see at the bottom is you'll see two reasons, and there is a third reason. The two reasons that you see are, the first is when Woodlands Water would bill before, the MUDs would bill before, it'd be 20 days from 1 month and 10 from the next month. When y'all went to AMI, it's a calendar month, but our calculations still show 20 from one and 10 from the other, so we dropped off 10 days.
Right.
Cost a higher water loss. Second reason that's not on here is gonna be well meters. We have two well meters, a physical meter that's on the well, and one that runs to the PLC. The PLC is the one that we use for the regulatory, Lone Star and everything else. These numbers included the actual physical meter on the well. So we found that and said, no, it's the PLC, use that one. That was a very minor adjustment, but it was an issue.
What is PLC?
Programmable logical controller. Thank you. I'll get the words out. The biggest asset that we found related to this was the AMI that y'all installed. And so you can see, starting back in January till now, we did rolling average for 12 months. And you can see where it started at 9%. And as y'all installed more meters,
Yeah,
it went down to where you see. So the current month is at 4.2%. We have been asked before, okay, if you were at 9, now you're at 4.2, equate that to dollars. Easiest way to do that is, last year when we did the budget, we recommended dropping 500 million gallons of demand. We talked to y'all on the audit committee and decided to stair step, drop down 250 million gallons. That other 250 million gallons was made up with this. That in dollar value is give or take $1.5 million per year, based on the current rates
in savings.
in savings. So,
That is the implication of all of the
correct.
bottom line. Right.
Any feedback from residents in any mud right now as to people that are looking at month by month, January to January, all of a sudden I'm up 5 or 7%. I'm same amount of gallons.
That on their bills, I don't think there was too much of an outcry.
I'm not aware of anything. Maureen, are you getting any calls about higher bills because of more accurate meters?
Maybe it's a wintertime phenomenon. It could be more noticeable in the summertime.
Because of irrigation.
So good, so far so good.
Okay, Chris, while you're standing there, one question. Have we started the land acquisition process yet?
We have not. That's what you're gonna vote on today to give you trustee directly. Then in March, we get trustee approval. We go. I can do excess funds. I'm here. All right,
And then budget.
and then we'll do budget.
And Dan will follow up with you.
So on page 37, this is our annual memo when it occurs for excess funds. And so 37, 38, 39, and 40 is the complete package that we gave to the audit committee, trustees, each of the MUDs. There's no action on this today. This action is at the trustees next month. What this is saying, just to kind of summarize it, is with the excess funds and R&R policy, it says if there's any funds left over at the end of the year, we bring it back to the MUDs and trustees and say, what do y'all want to do? Two choices: allow us to keep it, citing named projects, or return it to the MUDs based on pro rata share of water usage. Bottom of page 37, you'll see $370,000. This is the FY22 excess funds. Biggest portion of that 370,000 is in the paragraph above that, towards the top on the right, 217,000. That's for a generator that we bought basically just over a year ago. Shipping delays, we just got it in the past month. So what we're asking for with the letter, let us keep the 370,000. We're gonna pay for that $217,000 generator and panel. Use the other $150,000 to fund a rate model that the Woodlands Division has never had. Rate model basically helps us project water rates going forward, sewer rates going forward. One thing to note, you've had the question before, is it really 150? No, it's actually a little bit more than that. Keep in mind that Woodlands has two budgets. We have more than that, but you have a water budget and you have a wastewater budget. They're two separate budgets that we combine when we showed you. So we do two separate budgets, plus we have to factor in all the various bonds that are coming in for the AC line, strategic plan, all the R&R projections. So it's a complicated program at the end of the day. So 217,000 for the generator, 150,000 for the rate model. Questions? So up here, let me run through the rest of it. You'll see a PowerPoint in here. That is the budget guidelines that we gave to the audit committee. And for transparency, we pass it out to everybody else. On pages 50 through 52, you'll see basically some squares that say current, proposed, so on and so forth. What this is this is the proposal that we're going to be putting into the FY24 budget. So starting on page 50. Future facilities are basically capacity funds that we received during 6 and final accounting. During 6 and final accounting, there was two projects identified, a new GST and then expanding aeration basins 1 and 2 at wastewater plant 1 for $2 million. With the strategic plan, there's no option that needs us to replace those aeration basins. So that $2 million is not needed. Now, in the in the future facilities, there's 4.6 million. So the proposal is to use that 4.6 million to almost fully fund EST number 6. EST number 6 is proposed at Egypt Lane and Research Forest, and it's about a $5 to $7 million job. So rather than putting that into the rates, we have cash on hand. We use the cash on hand to pay for it, since we already have it. Next page, 51. This is the R&R fund. Similar to the aeration basins, the Lift Station 5 force main project was put on hold when we started strategic plan. The conveyance option you are going to talk about and vote on today, as well as trustees next month. If that conveyance option is viable and goes through, Lift Station 5 is not needed. It would be eliminated. Therefore, you don't need to do the force main. So that's just over $5 million. Another project underneath that, Town Center Water. Sometimes we get the names right, sometimes we don't. Town Center is actually Grogan's Mill from Woodlands Parkway to about Evergreen Circle, then runs up and down Lakefront Circle. We'll have more maps next month on the project. That's about $5 million. That project is in design. Project does need to go through. Construction is about 10 million. So we need $5 million more to do the job. However, we have proposed doing the construction as well as the future phases of the AC water lines with bonds. Talked about that over the last couple of years. Next month, we're going to have all the proposals for the AC water line bonds. So what we're proposing is to take that $10 million of cash we have on hand currently and acquire the land with it. First $5 million, which is, you've heard during the strategic plan land acquisition, somewhere between $4 and $6 million. The $4 million is basically just raw land, no consultants helping, no legal, nothing else. $6 million includes some on the Golden Road side. I'm sorry, the north of Golden Road. So the number we're looking at for budgetary purposes for east of wastewater plant 1 is $5 million. When we do the conveyance, it's not just the land north of Golden Road that we're looking to get, but it's also land out in the area between the plant, Woodlands Parkway, Griffith's Mill, and Timberline. There's a big area where all those lift stations are, and that conveyance line would weave in and out of there. We're going to use as many easements as we can, but we don't have easements in land anymore. So what we're proposing is kill off these two projects for $10 million and just reallocate the funds to land acquisition. Cash on hand, don't have to go for a bond for that, don't have to raise rates for that. Last item we see here on page 52. In 2017, we sold a bond for 3 projects. 2 of those 3 projects are done. It was a solids building at plant 1 that we plan to keep, and then Bear Branch gravity main. The last project that was part of the bond is the replacement of aeration basins 1 and 2, about $13 million. Like we talked before, future facilities don't need those funds because the aeration basin is not going to be replaced. So what we showed here is the proposed use of funds. Now, obviously, phase 2 of the strategic plan, we're looking for to be paid for at $500,000 from the bond funds, just like phase 1 was. The second, you'll see South Shore Gravity Main. This is a line that was put on hold. And I get the golf courses, you'll have to give me on this one. The golf course is closest to Woodlands Parkway in Grogan's Mill. The north course is what I call it.
That's a new old name, yeah.
There we go. I got that one right. So this line actually runs to the north course. And so we put it on hold because we said, well, if we do consolidation or something, you may need to not do that project and reroute it. So long story short, bring that project back up, $12 million for that one. Then the conveyance that we talked about a minute ago that you're going to vote on later today, pay for that out of the bonds as well. And then any work that needs to be done on plant 1 as far as design for a new facility, a phased facility, whatever it is, pay for that out of the bond as well. The attempt is to use all the cash we have on hand, all the bond funds we have on hand before we go forward with any other bonds. Any new money. Now, the thing to note, the 2017 bonds, in case there's a question of, hey, can you use that for the AC water lines? 2017 bonds is only for wastewater projects. We cannot use it anything water related, which is why you see nothing but wastewater.
That was my question.
Try to keep it brief. I know it's kind of lengthy, but any questions, Ed can answer.
No, it's very helpful.
Yep, no, thank you. Thank you. And that,
Next. Page 35. This is going to be discussion for the upcoming action item on your agenda, item number 11. For considering and acting on giving y'all trustee direction on how to vote for path forward for wastewater strategic plan. So page 35, there is a summary bullet points at the top of the stakeholder recommendation. I want to, at a high level, walk through those. Feel free to ask any questions as I go. So the first one is related to the proposed phase 2 of the strategic plan. And this is to further refine and optimize the alternative 9, which has been deemed throughout this strategic planning process. And that is construction of a new membrane MBR treatment facility plant next to existing plant 1, east of that towards Golden Road. Phase 2, really what we are looking at in there is answering the questions regarding how do we right size the capacity for this facility, pulling the best information we can get from the developers on future development, looking at the SFDUE data that we have, and how do we right size the various components of a facility that we plan to construct in 2027. So it's also looking at, what options do we have to build, the headworks and the screens portion to maybe an ultimate capacity. How do we define that versus the membrane section? Is there a way to phase capacity into that where we might build to 6 MGD in 2027, but let's set it up, design it and construct it in a way that additional modules could be added at future years out as there's further growth or need for capacity. So that is the major piece of phase 2. As we get more information on what that capacity needs to be, we can relook at the layouts of the plants and further define them and start developing more detailed cost estimate than the conceptual cost estimate that was done during the phase 1 of the strategic plan. So refining those cost estimates, which can also go back and do look at the bond financing needs and the debt service, and ultimately get to what is proposed rate increases to customers associated with this overall wastewater plan. So that is really the highlights of that phase 2 effort, which is going to be under the $500,000. Looking at 6 months to complete that work, tentatively starting that in middle of April after we finalize a work order with the consultant take it to SRA's board, the documentation with TWDB, because as Chris noted, that would be funded out of the existing 2017 bond funds. So that is ultimately the first recommendation part of the bigger picture. Second recommendation from the stakeholder group was to proceed forward with the land acquisition. This would be specifically the land needed for the wastewater treatment facility. You know, Bruce, we appreciate you sitting in on all those stakeholder meetings. We got down, as we narrowed down the alternatives, one common aspect of all those was the need for that land. So we feel this is something that we should start, you know, the appraisals and surveys and start getting the team together to help acquire that land. The third bullet and recommendation refers to the conveyance piece that came out of the strategic plan. So that is looking from that lift station 5 area south of Woodlands Parkway down to the new wastewater treatment facility, eliminating the force main and create a, you know, an all gravity conveyance line and conceptually remove 5 lift stations from the system. So we would like to initiate the preliminary engineering here to get a consultant on board to start looking at what the route analysis needs to be, which is going to lead into what we may need for easements or land acquisition. Looking at what the flow lines of those would be, how would all the lift stations be connected into that? And really kind of the first step would be, is there a fatal flaw analysis or issues from the conceptual that was done in the, you know, phase 1 of the strategic plan? So starting to get into the more details of, you know, let's go through and get some additional information and really look at the details of this project. So it might include survey, geotech, and start developing a, you know, 30% design level. So the figure below on page 35 there, that is really more just a depiction what I just went through verbally, showing how from the strategic plan, we are now breaking out into 3 kind of concurrently running pieces of this overall wastewater program. So I guess I'll pause there to see if y'all have any questions on what the recommendation is from the stakeholders, which is essentially what we're recommending for that y'all's approval and vote for item number 11 on your agenda.
You mentioned with the last bullet point there, hiring a consultant.
Yeah.
So do you have someone in mind, and do you have a cost of what that consultant is, and do you have their objectives lined out?
So for that piece, not into a detail. So what we would have to do is the plan is, you know, we go to the trustees in March for this recommendation. Barring that decision, we would issue a request for qualifications for that project, go out publicly solicit qualifications from various consultants, go through an evaluation to select the most qualified consultant to perform that work. So we are not anticipating having a final scope of work cost for that first phase until it'll probably be late July, August timeframe by the time we get all that together. But that piece, tying it back to what Chris showed, is that $4 million that would cover, anticipate to cover the preliminary and final design of the conveyance piece. So we feel we have funds on hand to fund further study, preliminary engineering, final design of that conveyance. That answered your question.
So for the 3 items going forward concurrently, do you anticipate that they would be completed more or less simultaneously, or is there some phasing within phase 2?
So essentially, I think the plan right now is the conveyance piece of it. You know, we want to get ahead on the planning and design, but ultimately the construction may not happen until the construction of the plant comes in and those tie together.
Understood.
So we want to make sure there is nothing, like I said, a fatal flaw with that concept that we were going to just sit on for 2-3 years and then pick it up and go, oh, you know, we messed up there.
Yeah.
So we want to get ahead on pieces of that.
Because there is easements to acquire,
Right.
And that
and
aspect.
that may take a little while.
So what I'm trying to get at is the dependency elements, you know, if A, then B, and the time frame for them. I guess at some point you'll lay out a little bit more detail as you get into phase 2. assuming, of course, everyone would be approving it, that, you know, we would have that sequence of events in the plan. But what you're just saying, your easements,
We would have a schedule that you all could monitor.
Yeah.
And that we would update as work progresses.
okay,
Because things will float some.
Right.
Dan, Connie and I were talking this morning, and you don't want to get the conveyance line too far ahead of when the plant would finish. But you also don't want, you know, if you got too far ahead in the design, you might actually have to go back and update the plan. Geographic changes or topographic changes.
yes.
I want to minimize those opportunities.
One other thing I do want to point out, there was a handout up here. If you didn't grab one, we could pass them around. There's a memo that Priest and Nichols produced for us. We've received some questions from other MUD directors regarding membrane technology, regarding, you know, who's manufacturing these, where are they being manufactured, where would spare parts be, where would your field rep support be? Is there risks, you know, that necessarily be taken by going and utilizing that technology? I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I encourage you to read through some of these. I think it's good information on the MBR technology. So, and if you have any questions on that, if you have them at some point.
How similar or dissimilar would those concerns be to what you've got right now with the MBR plant up in on the lake?
Yeah.
And they've already been addressed.
Yeah, for that manufacturer, for Paul it has, and we actually, Jason found a company out of California that can do the same membranes itself. So you keep the same structure, but membranes change, computer system can change, so that's why MBR makes a lot of good sense for us, because cutting our teeth up there in a lot of cases. Sure.
Okay,
I got a just unrelated question. So probably for Ed, on the 4-month GRP financial statement, there's, I mean, it's $5.2 million in revenue beyond budget at this point. What's contributing to that?
Right.
Okay.
And all predominantly contributed by the groundwater pumping folks. Because, you know, the surface water stayed the same. It was a annual average of 12 million gallons a day. And so the groundwater systems didn't have any regulations on their pumping. And a lot of them are in the process of going back to Lone Star and asking for permit amendments to increase their pumping.
Got it.
If I could add just a little bit to that, just real quick. GRP hasn't had money obviously for quite a while. So what we're taking to our board this month, we presented to the review committee last month and gets hopefully approved this month. GRP does not have full reserves. So with the drought, we've actually filled the 3-month operating reserve, and we're taking an amendment to our board to fill the emergency reserve as well as the R&R. So the drought actually helped us out quite a bit. Now we can fill those buckets and hopefully take that stuff out of the budget going forward. So
Okay.
FYI, we're not going to sit on it. We have a plan for it.
And then what do you guys anticipate as far as next steps or impact after the December ruling on the Quadvest and Woodland Oak contracts?
Well, the litigation is still intact. Quadvest is going to appeal to the Supreme Court. But they're asking, and this is where it gets a little complicated, they've asked for us to not disagree. And we said, what's in it for us? And so we're working on what's called Rule 11 of just kind of defining the terms of where our participation or our no objection would occur. And that no objection would possibly have them paying all their arrears and getting current and staying current going forward. So we might even have a couple of months from now, another $8, $9, $10 million in the fund. And we've got some projects that we've been putting off that need to be done. And then there's a lot of discussion about what's happening.
Neil, any questions?
No, I'm done.
Okay, I have none. I have a motion to approve item number 11, consider and act upon the direction And now trustees vote. Vote in affirmative, please, if you would.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What, it's on all three phases? You're doing it, you're not doing them item by item. We're doing
No, it's all three phases, all three phases.
They're integrated,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
That's-
you can't get,
Yeah, we can do one without the other, you know.
okay. Okay, thank you. It is now, since the legislature is back in session, Brian's turn to give a lengthy report.
Well, thankfully, not too lengthy yet. They've, they're off and running. There've been about 3,000 or so bills introduced thus far. We are tracking them. There's not any that are on our, very concerned list yet. Of course, that can change. You're still trying to figure out what is, what's viable versus what's not in the session at this point. There's been very few committee hearings passed. We're certainly keenly focused on what's going on with the proposals for property tax reform. I think most of what's been talked about so far has been focused on school districts and possible additional exemptions that would impact school districts. Have not seen anything that would directly impact our districts at this point. We're also working on an omnibus cleanup bill for a handful of items that are in the water district world. See how that goes. One of the items would be per diems. We'll see how that goes.
Is there anything in the legislature looking at reforming the way we control water in the state? Well, regulate it with all the various agencies and everything else we have. It's a mishmash.
I'd have to go and look to be able to answer that one specifically. I mean, because there's
Hundreds.
session, there's any number, and some of them are kind of in our wheelhouse for what we're focused on for special purpose districts. But, some of what you're talking about could be outside of, what's handled by PUC versus TCEQ and what's handled by
Yeah.
Texas Water Development Board versus, some other entities. So I need to go and check that more closely before I give you that.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I have at this point.
Any questions? Thank you, Brian. Moving to item 14. Consider adoption of resolution concerning development district status for 2023.
So
Back to you.
Yep, so that is a deferral this month. We're still working with LGA to get their exhibit that indicate whether it's one side of 95% or the other. I think this district has been a developed district, but
Yeah.
we still go through the process every year. It can change from year to year, what your status is, but we'll be bringing that hopefully back to you next month.
Okay, so we don't have to vote on it today. Okay. Item number 14. Consider and act upon a district customer service communication and information message. And I gather this was brought up probably by the MUD 47 newsletter.
It was prompted by MUD 47 in December, the concept. And I think I mentioned last month that it was my recommendation. We put it on all the agendas and have it as an example for all MUDs to consider. So you've got a template there that was developed by John Geiger in our office. So if you think there's some value in preparing something similar to this, I would recommend. The other MUDs have all supported the concept, and they've asked one or two of their directors to work with John to develop
This is his.
the template. That's just the template.
All right, the information that is there.
Yeah. But you could put information pertinent to your MUD. And what we've been doing is, again, the board's assigning one or two directors to work with him and then bring it back to you next month to be finalized. And then would go out through our e-blast system. And the option is to also do an insert into the water bill.
Okay, Neil, you're on the Public Education Committee. Any thoughts or comments on?
Well, my first comment is I'm so pleased that John is working on this. His communications thus far going out to the mailing list, email list have been very illuminating and very helpful in explaining order from A to B, or A to Z, I should say. Now the committee will be meeting next month to have a review of the first quarter, which started in December. What communications went out, how it was received, number of openings, kind of that kind of thing. And then going forward, looking at what the second quarter messaging is, along with items such as the what we just heard discussed, the incredible improvement in the water loss numbers and the subtle reasons for that as more and more AMI meters were installed. So you saw that gradual reduction in the water loss number. And that was the subtle element I was having Chris explain to you all. So, so yeah, for MUD 6, I can see a one pager similar to this. I'm more focused though on resident service rather than patting oneself on the back. I just want to make sure that we think about in those terms.
Okay, Deborah, any comments?
No, I like the idea. I think it's a great idea. My question is, so you're gonna do, it goes with the email bills and with the postal bills? Because there's some of us that don't get a bill in the mail, but we get it by.
We would do what we call an e-blast. We've got a database of email addresses for your residents, so it would go out with that. And then also, if you choose, we could do it as an insert for those that do get a water bill or by snail mail.
So just out of curiosity, how many, do you know what the percentage of people that actually get a bill by mail, snail mail?
I would say it's about half and half at this point.
Seriously?
It's a lot of e-bills. Sometimes you get both, so covered either way.
We would get it by email. I can understand that concept, so, okay.
Aaron, any thoughts?
No, I agree with Neil's sentiment. So I think it's got to be comprehensive and not necessarily just focused on
Yeah, more
accomplishments.
e-bills. More than half.
Right.
Ambivalent. I think if we do it, I don't think the frequency should be monthly. I don't think we got that much.
This is one time for now, and then you can talk about if you wanted to do it.
I assumed it was
Again.
annual.
Yeah. The intent was annual, I think, it was with this particular month.
Just to enlarge that. Yeah. So what I'm hoping for as we go forward with the communications plan, if something that requires to go out, something comes up, like what we just discussed, that would then be slotted into the messaging for the next quarter. Okay, so it's not needing to have one of these every month or quarter. I think an annual, like the big view of what's happening in the mud, I think is sufficient.
Yeah.
But with all the other communications, it will really help supplement with a lot of detail what kind of reporting back to the customers this kind of report would be conveying, hopefully.
That sounds good.
Okay, I am also in favor of having something out monthly or annually, excuse me. Jim, are people deciding about setting up a committee in this meeting or afterwards, or what's the,
You would do it now,
do it now?
is recommend, and it would only be 2 because you don't want a quorum.
Right.
Yeah.
Just 1 or 2 to work with our staff.
Okay, anybody want to volunteer?
Neil's involvement in the communication.
Okay,
You and I?
you and I, okay.
All right.
Well, actually, we should vote to approve it first.
Yeah.
All right, may I have a motion on the proposition, please?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
And also including the volunteers off the book.
Nominate Bruce and Neil. For that committee.
Do we have to have a separate vote for that?
Yeah.
I'll make it part of this vote as well.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Okay, Jim, it's your turn.
Okay, just a few items to highlight from our trustee meeting. We did introduce a new general manager. He's out today, but he'll be sitting here next month and going forward. We also talked about merchant service fees. You remember a month or 2 or more ago, Paul Martin with the audit committee brought to the attention that the merchant service fees was a large number. When you add all the MUDs together, those fees that we pay for customers to make electronic payments, online payments, web-based payments is a pretty big number. And something that he felt we might want to look at and see if there's a way to standardize that or encourage folks to use a less expensive option. Well, since then, Maureen has revealed that she has been in discussions with a new water billing software company that really might level the playing field on these fees, eliminate some fees, and just make it a more palatable expense, I guess, operating expense, if you will. And so the committee would like to just put a pause on this topic until staff has time to vet this company and review it with the audit committee. So that's where we are with that topic. And then Paul Martin also reported that back in 2018, the trustees adopted a resolution where each year we would look at the reserves or the operating cash in the Woodlands Water Agency after the audit this year. And if it was inside a range, that nothing would be done. But if we had more cash than a certain threshold, we would rebate it back to the MUDs. If we were under, we would ask for money to be contributed. And he reported that we're in that range, so no action would be taken this year. In your packet, you've seen the copies of the letters from President Lux and the Lone Star Groundwater District regarding that vacant position number 7 on the Lone Star board. So we talked about that. Nice compliment email in your packet regarding Diane Ayers regarding customer service. We'd love to get those. And then the last, I want to report the Personnel Committee met to look at a list of special focus projects from the General Manager's office. We look at these every year. We certainly have all the routine things that we normally do, but then each year we also have a number of special, what we call special projects or special focus projects. So that Personnel Committee met with Eric and I, reviewed those, and they're kind of tweaking that document. And that's all I have to report unless you have a question.
I've got a question, Jim. The first item is drainage concerns. And I've seen a number of things on the internet, YouTube and Facebook showing major drainage problems in yards of the Woodlands. Where are these happening?
Well, you know what? I failed to report. One of these was two residents. You may know Vicky Fullerton and Virgil Yoakum live in Spud. And Vicky, and they both back up to a golf course on one of the tee boxes. And they both admit they have very low-lying lots, but during heavy rainstorms and some of the real heavy storms in January, they had sent some pictures, especially Vicky's lot, water coming onto her property, just inundating her backyard in particular. Well, a few years ago, we discovered there was a drainage easement in that area that had really not been utilized forever, I guess. And it was, so we cleared it, established it, shaped it, and it is, I think it's helped some, but the runoff from the golf course, because of when in a heavy rainstorm like that, it's like running it off a concrete pavement. It's just more than can be handled. We did go out and regrade the drainage easement adjacent to the homes. We did tell them we would be looking at see if there are any options. We could persuade the golf course to do anything to help with that. But in rainstorms like that, if you have a low-lying lot, you're going to be inundated. My lot was inundated for hours during that.
In the wintertime, cold weather, inability to absorb the rain, standing water.
But we did commit to looking further into it to see, and there were a couple of stumps that were left we're going to remove to help the drainage there. But that's that report for your mud.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Any other questions, Jim? Thank you, Jim. Item 16, received the Woodlands Board of Trustee report. Neil, do you have anything else to add?
Well, one thing, we have the summary in your packet, but I want to commend Arthur Bredehoff for his representation on Region H. He is coming back basically after every meeting, providing us with information as to deliberations for the planning that's going out to what, 2070, something on those terms. By that time, Region H's population is going to what, double or something? And so what does that do for water demand? You know, so the challenge, where's that water going to come from? And he is planning to provide updates on a regular basis. The only other thing just wanted to mention was hopefully there'll be a settlement regarding the TACUS issues, and the trustee board approved delegating authority to President Lux to sign the agreement once that is gone through.
Neil,
Yes, sir.
I think I've heard that there's been a number agreed to on that. And so it's a matter of more of a formality, I think, on whether it's legalese. TACUS is agreed apparently, and Woodlands Water is agreed. My overall question is it in the neighborhood of the outstanding monies that are owed us by TACUS?
That was discussed in an executive session, and I don't think I can really put that out there at this point. Sorry.
Not even if it's in a ballpark.
Well, I mean, there are different kinds of ballparks.
This might be a big one, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, was it a soccer field or a baseball stadium?
I don't think it's a pickleball.
I mean, anyway, basically, that's a negotiation that has to be worked through.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
I can't comment further.
Sure.
So that's my report.
Okay, Counselor, is there any reason for us to,
There's not.
okay. In that case, are there any matters to be discussed at future meetings that we should put on the agenda?
We'll bring your customer information message back to you for final look.
Okay, we should expect to hear from John. Okay, and with that, I then would like,
Just before, we'll be going, looking at item 13 again, Brian, next month.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
As
so
well as the.
Item 8.
item 8. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Meeting is finished at 2:17 PM.